Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about multi-crew. Now, I know this topic has been covered by a ton of content creators over the past couple of years, but things are starting to change a little bit now. Um, as the game gets more developed and new features come online, we're kind of starting to see how CIG sees multi-crew working in the future. And I kind of want to talk about it a little bit because it is a very divisive topic. Um, Everybody looks at this situation differently because, again, we don't know how exactly it's going to be when the game gets more developed. Right now, it is very limited for obvious reasons. But in the future, that gameplay might be a lot more in depth. And so, how players are going to interact with that is going to be a big deal. Um, I wanted to talk about these two ships in this one ground vehicle, because, in my opinion, they each go about multi-crew gameplay in a different way. Um, right now, multi-crew gameplay on the Reclaimer is non-existent, but in 3.18, it will be a big part of how this ship functions. Basically, to get the most out of this ship in 3.18, you are going to need to play with a few people. Um, the mole, on the other hand, is easily soloed. One person can hop in a mole, and they can fly out to their destination, and they can get into the bottom turret, and they can mine what they need to. It is a hassle, but it is doable. Um, and then the Rock DS, on the other hand, it's kind of just a little bit difficult to do solo and to do with another person. So basically, its multi-crew functionality is not very good, and its solo functionality is also not very good. Um, but the one thing that it does have in its corner is it is essentially a tool for an org, and it is very focused in that aspect. Um, this is not a ground vehicle I recommend at all if you don't specifically want to do that gameplay. Basically, what I'm saying is the Rock DS is very specific in its gameplay, in its multi-crew. So I kind of want to kick this video off by talking about the past state of multi-crew, uh, which is very limited. A lot of people saw multi-crew gameplay in Star Citizen as everybody essentially having a station and a role and executing that station and a role, but it kind of became very evident that the game was going to be focused around making money. And in that situation, a lot of people are not going to want to gravitate towards jobs that don't make the most money. They're not going to want to gravitate towards jobs that are valuable for the time that a person is required to put in to get good at that job. So, for instance, a lot of people will rationalize it in, yes, it's fun and entertaining to be a turret gunner on a ship, but is it more fun and more entertaining to be the captain of that ship, for instance? And so that puts that essentially put the past state of multi-crew gameplay on shaky ground, obviously, because a lot of people thought the answer to that situation would be to have NPCs. CIG has already said that we will be able to have NPC crew, And essentially, you can fill these stations with NPCs and you can be the captain. But obviously, NPCs are not going to be as good as having a player in that seat. I mean, a lot of people will argue that, they can go out and buy an Idris and, they can have all the fun they want. But at the end of the day, a fully player manned Idris it's far more deadly than an NPC Idris. I mean, you've probably played the mission in the game where you go up against an Idris and it's not, you know, undefeatable. It's very killable for a solo player in a ship like a Vanguard, for instance. So if you were owner of the Idris and you had an all NPC crew, and a couple of Infernos show up or a couple of Vanguards shows up, you'd be in trouble. And an Idris is a considerable investment to not be OP in that situation. So essentially, CIG definitely wants to encourage actual players to team together and man these ships. So where does that leave the players in terms of having desirable gameplay? And that brings us back to the Rock DS situation and the Mole situation. Because the Mole's a great ship. It's one of the first ships in the game where real multi-crew gameplay can be had. When it came out, you could have 3 laser operators and a pilot, so a group of 4 friends could get together and reliably do the work. Now, people quickly started realizing that having 4 individual prospectors could make more money than just 4 players going on to the Mole, and it kind of flipped the value add on its head. But if you're thinking in terms of an org, if you look at the price of 4 prospectors to one mole is like $315, but one prospector is 155. So that means that one mole is roughly worth, 2 prospectors. So if you take out 4 prospectors, the value add is gone. But if your org has, 4 people in it who have their own prospectors, well, just go out in those 4 prospectors instead of going out in a mole. And that's a lot of what's been happening because people are essentially just buying spaceships. Everybody has kind of decent gear, as soon as they jump in the game. So then the next suggestion was to have, a game package with no ship. You're just a guy on foot and you have to team up with other people and make things happen. And that's one way CIG can go. CIG can, effectively make the game free to play, but you get no spaceship. Which again, it's not a bad idea, but in my personal opinion, it's not just the players, it's the gameplay involved. So then we move up the ladder to the Reclaimer. Okay, this is the future state of the game. And the Reclaimer is an interesting situation because it is significantly more expensive, I believe, than I think it's like 5 something, and a Vulture is 140. So it's, I don't know, it's maybe like 3 Vultures, but it does have a lot more cargo than a Vulture. So once it gets in game, we're gonna have to look at how that balance is. Again, what's the cargo capacity. I mean, it can hold a lot more cargo than a vulture. So if you want to go out together with your friends, with four friends, a pilot, two laser operators, and someone in the cargo hold, that's four people, you will overall make more money than four vultures going out together. So it's not that CIG has to balance the prices of the scrap, it's just the fact that the reclaimer is so much more capable than a vulture. Okay, but then again, you also have to look at what are you salvaging. And right now we just have hull stripping, so it kind of doesn't matter how much cargo you can hold. If you only run across 5 or 6 ships, you can only strip so much of the hull. Let's say you run across 2 Mustangs in game. You're not filling your cargo hold with scrap from that. So in a situation where you're only running across a couple ships in game, maybe a vulture would be a better decision. So that aspect of the game, CIG, in my opinion, really has to balance is, what are we salvaging here? And can we really fill the cargo hold of a reclaimer just by doing a couple ships? Or are you, going to be patrolling all day, looking for scrap with your 4 friends? And then the time plays a factor. Because at the end of the day, if you have 4 hours to play that day, you're going to want to maximize that time. So this is the real issue with multi-crew gameplay, in my opinion. The amount of money you can make in game, the amount of time it takes to make that money in game, and the equipment needed to make that money in game. What is the best equipment, how fast you can do it, and how much money you can make. These are the 3 metrics that every player who jumps into Star Citizen wants to target, because again, the game is about money. If the game was about stats, if the game was about craft, if the game was about anything else, then people would chase those other goals. But right now, the only goal in game is to make money so you can buy things. So gameplay is important, but at the end of the day, the number one factor is how much money I can make and how fast I can make it, and what's the best equipment to make that money. Those are the 3 factors that you're thinking about when you do anything in this game. Yes, you want to have fun. Yes, it's going to be cool to play with your friends. But at the end of the day, after you're done testing out the new salvage mechanic, what's going to drive you to get in the game and try this out in that role? Let's say you're the guy in the org that has to, stand in the back of the cargo hold, taking the boxes out of the machine and stacking them up. How fun is that for you? How much money are you going to make doing that? If it's the least fun job to do and you make the least amount of money, why would anyone want to do it? So there has to be advantages for that guy who wants to play that role. Maybe he makes more money than the laser operators because that job is not that fun. And the thing is, right now, that decision is left up to the players. How the split, how the financial split works in game. And that was my real issue with the Rock DS when the Rock DS came out. Okay, so everybody that considered the Rock DS, they were really looking at it as a standpoint comparing it to the standard ROC. And the value when this vehicle was released, the value wasn't there for a lot of people. It just made more sense to take out 2 Rocks instead of getting the Rock DS. Now, I was a big fan of this vehicle because, in my opinion, it was the first opportunity for players to start a business and start thinking about the revenue split. because prior to the Rock DS, everyone looked at the revenue split as 50-50 or even. You go with your buddies, you pay them a fair, you give them a fair shake. You're spending the same amount of time out there, but that leads to big problems in economy of scale. At the end of the day, this game doesn't have an economy, but the players are gonna have to do that delegation. They're gonna have to essentially say, okay, this is the revenue cut that a captain or ship owner gets. This is the revenue cut that a gunner gets. This is the standard rate for engineer. This is and kind of divide that up. So if you want to be an engineer, you know what the standard going rate is for an engineer. If you want to be a ship pilot, you know what the standard going rate for a pilot is. But that doesn't exist in the game right now. So when the Rock DS came out, everybody looked at the Rock DS as this thing has no value. Okay, so CIG had to kind of balance the cargo so it would be very valuable. But then what people ended up doing was just taking the Rock DS out solo. They would essentially drive it around, then they would get out, get into the mining laser, and mine with the laser, and they would be able to get more ore and make more money than if they took one rock out. And in that sense, the Rock DS is great. Buy it in game, throw it in a ship that can hold it, and then when you go out there mining, you're just making more than if you went out with one rock. But that essentially negated the multi-crew usefulness of this vehicle. So people really don't. At the end of the day, the Rock DS is a failure. It's a failure because CIG didn't make clear boundaries for the gameplay around it. They essentially just said, here's a vehicle, do whatever you want with it. And on paper, that seems fun and exciting. Hey, here's an opportunity to be creative and do all these different things. But at the end of the day, there needs to be reasons to do things. This is a sandbox game, but if you just do things just for the sake of doing things, that's anarchy. There needs to be logic involved. So, in my opinion, the multi-crew gameplay around the Rock DS, it fails on all fronts. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like this ship. I think this was a good opportunity for CIG to essentially do something really cool. But at the end of the day, more gameplay needs to come online for the Rock DS to make sense. Again, it's one of those ships that could have been really cool. And ask anybody, they'll probably tell you the same thing. The Rock DS is a ship that could have been really cool, but it failed. So next we're going to move on to the Mole. And the Mole kind of falls into the same situation. Right now, it just does not have more cargo than 3 or 4 prospectors. And that's the main problem that I see with the Mole. And it's a huge advantage for somebody who just wants to go out and use the Mole solo. And a lot of people use the Mole solo because of that. It is more than one prospector, but it's not enough for a multi-crew situation. In my personal opinion, this vehicle should be able to store 10 times what a prospector can hold. That way, even if you took out 10 prospectors, that would make no sense when you could just take out one Mole. You see what I'm saying? But the fact is, you could take 2 or 3 prospectors out and you can get more cargo than a Mole. So it kind of makes the Mole pointless. Because the Mole has a crew of 4 people. So those 4 people could be better used in 4 prospectors. If those 4 people have 4 prospectors. But the Mole in my opinion, could be fixed if it just had more cargo storage. If they did essentially the same thing that they did with the DS, with the mole, and gave it more cargo, then it would make sense to do multi-crew. I mean, people would still solo it, because if you gave it more cargo, then it just makes more of a reason to take it out solo. But it would definitely encourage at least two people to go out together. Maybe you have one guy in the laser, one guy in the pilot. That would make sense, because if you did a 50-50 split, you would make more on the prospector either way. Because it's going to take a while before players start thinking of these ships as assets in a business. Again, right now, players just kind of, it's a game, right? So they want to have fun with their friends. They don't want to say, okay, you're a laser operator, you get 20K while I get 80K. I mean, is your friend really going to want to do that? I don't think so. And even in an org, you join an org, you join up an org as, a low-ranking member. You start from the ground level. Do you really want to, go with a group of guys who's giving you like 20% for doing, most of the work? Probably not. But in real life, that's how it works. Real life, that's how it works, because the people at the top start businesses so they can make money. They don't start businesses so you can make money. If you want to make money, you got to start your own business. So that brings us to the Reclaimer. And so the Reclaimer is just, in my personal opinion, exacerbating that situation, because now you need to put a bunch of people in the ship to make it valuable. But on the other hand, that's a good thing, because it builds on that gameplay. It makes that gameplay valuable. Okay? Whether people want to do it or not is a completely different discussion. But in my opinion, the way they describe the Reclaimer's multi-crew gameplay, to me, it makes sense. And to me, I think it's more involved than the other iterations of multi-crew. Now, with the Reclaimer, it's a larger cargo hold, so it solves the problem of taking out, multiple vultures. And in my personal opinion, people are definitely going to want to group together to get into a Reclaimer and do the work. Now, the pay split it's probably gonna be a major contention for a while, and I think it's mostly going to be a problem because it's something that most people don't think about. When people who own orgs, who start orgs, and people who buy these ships, a lot of people who buy these ships look at them as, okay, this is a cool spaceship that I own, and that's exciting. But the thought process past that is not really there. Maybe I'm just gonna take this thing on solo. Maybe I'm gonna, convince my friends to play Star Citizen, and we're gonna hop in it and we're gonna have a blast. But at the end of the day, you don't know. Like, maybe your friends aren't, they can't play that day. So what are you gonna do with this thing? You're gonna leave it in the hangar and not use it? And so a lot of people are asking CIG now for org systems. So what org systems are essentially tools in the game that allow orgs to manage their members in game instead of using an out of game solution. Or like you would go on Discord in a typical org, you would have people join your Discord and you get in a call and you'd schedule events and you'd talk to each other in the call and you essentially plan out what you want to do. for that play session. But that's very involved, right? And at the end of the day, not everybody's gonna want to do that. Not everyone's gonna be as social enough to do that, because I mean that's another aspect. Of course, Star Citizen is on track to becoming an MMO, so the social aspect is kind of a requirement in any MMO. Really, I know more modern MMOs are becoming more solo focused, but at the end of the day, an MMO is a social game. So you don't be afraid of it. There's no reason to be afraid of it. It's one of the best parts of the game. But at the end of the day, it is completely up to that org on how everything is done in game. They don't really have any tools to manage the members or to do anything like, assign roles, etc. Everything has to be done outside of the game. And so people who own orgs, they want in-game tools so they can be able to do that. And I think that's going to be huge. If CIG can successfully implement a system that gives org owners a way to assign roles, to maybe even assign pay splits or salaries, or like giving different people tasks, that would be really cool. Like maybe you log on one day and you have a note from your lieutenant that you need to do X, Y, and Z. That would be cool. And again, I don't know, I don't have all the answers, but I'm saying something needs to happen for orgs and for multi-crew gameplay. Now, another suggestion that gets thrown out there is kind of like a group finder. Tons of MMOs have group finders. I mean, some people say it ruins things. But in my opinion, CIG could integrate it into the law a little bit by making it a staffing company. Let's say, and I've kind of seen this in game in Orison. It looks it's a storefront that you could go to, and it's kind of like a place where you could go and you can find workers and stuff like that. But a system like that would be great if you can go to find other players in game to, let's say I log on a fresh server, I go to this location to hire some players in game that very moment, and it just gives me a list of all these people who are willing to crew up and do some stuff, and I could be like, hey, I got this reclaimer, you wanna operate the tractor beam, you wanna operate laser, you want to hang out in the cargo bay stacking stuff, I'll pay you X, Y, and Z. And then maybe that person's like, yeah, I got none better to do, I logged on to the game today, I'm just bored. Because I feel like that's a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people sometimes hop in the game, they're just bored, they want to hang out, do something for a couple of minutes. And if somebody has an idea of something to do, they'll go hang out with them, they'll go, they'll play along. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about multi-crew? Are you excited for the reclaimer coming out? Are you excited what that multi-crew gameplay is going to look like? And in this video, I didn't even talk about the resource management system, but I want to save that for after CitizenCon, because we're going to get a lot more information on how that's essentially going to end up being like. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thanks for tuning into another podcast. These videos have been getting a lot of love, and I just want to say thank you to you guys for that. All the views, everything, you guys are awesome. Keep liking the videos. Yeah, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys later. Usual outro. Salute.